Hello, everybody. Allie Taylor here, and welcome back to another episode of Flex Appeal. So, today's video is going to be very simple. All I'm going to be doing is taking my stage video from Battle of the Bodies, my individual posing routine, and I'm going to talk about what some of the judges' feedback was. From nobody in particular, I'm going to tell you anonymously what the judges' feedback was, and I'm going to compare it to a recent posing video of mine and just talk about what some of the differences are between what I did on stage and what the judges are wanting to see in the future. So if you see me looking off to the side here, it's because I'm going to be looking at the video and talking over it. And if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes that I have here. So without further ado, so immediately coming out onto the stage, that was the first thing that the judges called me out on. When I put my arm down there in the front pose, I'm not sure if you can see it well in the quality of this video. I'll try and have upload a photo if you can't see it very well here, but I actually push with my arm, and that causes you to be able to see striations across my shoulders. And just with the size of my upper body anyways, I don't need to be pushing and flexing that. And the judges pretty much across the board called me out on being just a little bit too hard and in that pose in particular. And that's like right out the gates coming onto the stage. So definitely something that I'm being very conscious about going forward. So after that, basically enjoyed, judges enjoyed the walk here. They liked, quick pause right there again. Same thing getting into the front pose. They just wanted me to soften that arm up a little bit. Personally, I would like to work on my walk. Need to move my shoulders and my chest just a little bit more. I know it can be a little bit stiff there, and just being a little bit softer and more intentional about how I place it down. So there is that front pose. Okay, side note, getting into the front pose. So I have quite a bit of rib flare, I guess you could say. So I've had to traditionally be very closed off in my front pose and be at basically a complete 90-degree with my feet pointing one direction and my upper body pointing the other, which you should be able to see pretty well here in this front pose at Battle of the Bodies. So one thing that Shane and I are trying to do is open up my front pose just a little bit. So we're changing the angle of my foot, which is going to change the shape of my glute and quad as well. Additionally, we are opening up my stomach and my chest just a little bit more. And we're hoping that this will actually hopes to make me look smaller, but it's a much more comfortable pose for me to get into than being so twisted and cut off on stage. So we're going to be trying that. If it doesn't work, we're going to go back to this pose because this pose obviously does work for the judges, but it's just something that we're going to play with because this one isn't the most comfortable front pose for me to get in. So, okay. And transitions, fine there. Just need to keep balance a little bit better. Obviously, when getting in between poses, one thing I would like to make note of as well is I have a tendency to drop my glutes when I'm transitioning between there and there. So just keeping glutes up and then also not letting them drop while getting into the back pose and transitioning into that. So just a little bit of something the judges didn't necessarily pick up on, but something that I'm picking up on. I did lose my balance just a hair there, as you saw, and I don't normally flip my hair to the back in that pose, and in fact Shane really encourages us not to. The deal with that was I was sweating really badly on stage and my hair stuck to my arm, as you can see in the video. So I did have to adjust it, which those kind of adjustments are necessary to make. If my hair had gone all across my shoulders and the judges wouldn't have been able to see my rear delts, that would have been a larger problem than if my hair had just looked bad. Also, it would have shown a lot of my back. I know in bikini people are like, "Oh man, you guys have a back that's noteworthy. Why don't you guys show it?" It's just not traditional for the division. That is a really common question that I get. It's just not a traditional thing for bikini. Women that have shorter hair or competitors that have no hair or braids or ponytails or whatever, It does show more of the back, obviously, or some competitors do choose to move their hair. Just be aware, if you choose to show something, it is fair game for the judges. So they can now judge you on your back, even though that wasn't normally something that was a part of the package. So it's just something to be aware of. So I got the hair adjusted in the back pose. So this was by far my largest bit of feedback that I got from the judges. So the way that my back is, I have a very flexible lower back, which allows me to arch arguably further than what most of the competitors can arch their backs normally. What it does is it actually ends up washing out my glutes and squaring them out just a little bit. So the judges were telling me that it's actually better earlier in the pose when I'm standing more upright, and they want it somewhere in between there and where I have it. So the feedback was that I hit the back pose correctly many times throughout it, but there were also many times throughout comparisons an individual where I did not hit it correctly. So because it was hit or miss, that was one of the things that moved me down a couple of notches, was just not being as consistent with hitting that same proper back pose every single time. I would love to get posing feedback over physique feedback pretty much any day of the week, because that's something that I can change pretty quickly, and I can control that. One of the judges did make a note about my tan, which if you guys read my story earlier, you know that my tan was not in the condition that I normally like to have it that day either, and that was my fault. So it's just another one of those things that we can control. So transitioning out of the back pose, same thing here. I just need to be conscious about not pushing too hard in the glutes and washing myself out. Hands on the hips pose. I personally have fought so hard to get this into my routine. A bit of feedback from the judges was this just makes me look too muscular. It's not just in the arms, it makes me look too muscular. It's actually overall. So they said this pose in particular is just one that they recommended removing from my routine. I'm just trying to be aware of being more open in my front pose. So yeah, you'll see here at the end, I'm more open in the front pose, and I'm trying to just be a little bit softer about how I set my arm down. Other than that, the routine is basically, for now, going to stay the same. The judges liked it, Shane liked it, I like it. So it was very encouraging to get feedback from this panel. So again, shout out, you guys did an incredible job, and Janet, this show was top notch from top to bottom. So would highly recommend this show to any competitor who's able to do it. It's a great show. Basically, they said they loved the shape, they loved the conditioning, they loved the balance. They also said I was a little bit tense in my posing. That's something where it's just my inexperience with only being on stage. I believe that was my 7th or 8th total bodybuilding show I've ever done. My time on stage is actually very low in comparison to many of these other women and competitors out there. Much more time on stage. So I'm still very green in that area. So that's where my posing needs work more than other categories do, for sure. Please let me know if you guys liked or enjoyed this video. You can comment and let me know any kind of content that you'd like to see in the future. If this helped you, please like, subscribe, comment, and share to any of your friends or family. And until next time, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Allie Taylor, and thank you for watching Flex Appeal.